Iphupho, Bernard Bantu production.
Dayu, depending on where you are, I greet you. Nusiemi betwa bumbote bana bayisoleli. Molweni abantwana abanguni. Mpo salama watoto wa Mungu. Dumelang, Sawubona. Yes, this is Africa, and Africa is our business. And family, today, we welcome a voice of vision, rhythm, and memory. Nhlanhla Ngqaqu, as I am hoping not to butcher the name. Who is a composer, a band leader, and the founder of iPhupho, L'ka Biko, which is the dream of Biko. Honored among the 200 young South Africans in 2024. Holder of 2 honors degrees in music from WITS, and leader of an ensemble that fuses jazz, gospel, igwijo, and ancestral soundscapes into living ritual. Nhlanhla, welcome to Bantu Re-Education TV.
Thank you so much, my brother, and greetings to the viewers.
Most obliged. So we dive right into it. What first called you into music? Was it the sound of childhood, the spirit of the ancestors, or the weight of your surroundings?
I think primarily it is a calling. It is a gift, from the Almighty. But then now, in terms of my upbringing, I would say, in my family, my grandmother, we used to go to the Adventist church, on Saturdays. So there were some beautiful moments whereby I enjoyed the music, didn't like other parts because we are there the whole day in the temple, so you would fall asleep sometimes when it's time for prayer. But then my uncle was an appreciator of music. Like, he had a lot of vinyls that would just sit and sing along. My aunt went to a lot. It was a cultural center in the township that I grew up in, Kagiso, in the West Rand of Johannesburg, where there was theater, singing. My mom, at some point in her life, she was part of a choir, so I also would go to her to those choir practices. So there are many different influences that really drove me towards this journey of music.
Most obliged. And now this brings me to the question. iPhupho L'ka Biko. Well, I'm hoping I'm getting the name right. Today it's going to be a difficult enterprise for me because, as you said, I don't have the click. Biko's dream. It carries deep resonance. Just the name itself. What dream are you carrying forward through this ensemble?
I mean, when we speak of the dream, when one speaks of a dream, there should be an understanding that a dream is useless without interpretation, and even as we read historically, even to this day, when kings had dreams, someone had to interpret, even Pharaoh, when Pharaoh dreamt of the thin cow and the fat cow, the prophet had to come in and explain what this means, your Nebuchadnezzar's, when they would dream, they would need prophets to come and interpret, so dream needs interpretation. To this day, if you have a dream, you'll ask your mother, your grandmother, what this means. You even go to a healer or a sangoma, inyanga, to interpret what this dream means. So with us, that's what it is, our own interpretation of what could have been Biko's dream. And now it comes from, there's a great pianist from South Africa, late great pianist called Moses Taiwa Modelekwa. He had a song called Biko's Dream, and at that time, around 2013, around 2013, I was really starting to get into jazz, and I asked myself, like, how do you then know what is Biko's dream if there are no lyrics? So at least if it's poetry, it says Biko's dream, those words will tell you. But then if it's just musical notes, it's just instruments. So it sort of like takes you to a deep place and a deeper place, and you go wild with imagination. And I just got stuck with that word Biko and more interested in Biko because at that time I was reading I Write What I Like. And now looking at Biko, I actually got drawn to him because he was a selfless man, you know, and and as we know that what religion has done in Africa in terms of how everything African has been it has been made to be demonic, our ancestors, our languages are erased, our way of being, so now we have no sense of reality or respect for lineage or our ancestry. And now you can call it black theology if you will, but then we are also interpreting in some ways or forms the word of God to fully suit or be applicable to the lives of black people and the lived experiences of blacks, because if, for example, in the Bible, Jesus Christ died for us, right? And further on in the epistle to his disciples also says that you should love one another and lay down your lives for each other. And that's how I see Biko. Biko is someone that laid down his life for us, to completely forgot about his youth, his family, and took upon the struggle and died for us. And you have your Sankaras, who laid down their lives for us. And so essentially, for me, that is what we're carrying forward, that spirit of selflessness. And it can only, for bravery to come out, one needs to be conscientized. So that is the dream, for people to be conscientized. And once they're conscientized, that's when they'll be able to act boldly, without fear and with no compromise, for the betterment of our people, our continent, and our descendants.
Nkosi, which is, as Africans, we always say, Umuntu ngumuntu gabantu. I am because you are,
Yeah.
because we are. And interesting, you just mentioned, you hold, it's common knowledge, you hold 2 honors degrees in music, yet your sound is raw with ancestral power. How do you weave, the academic part of it, the training, with the indigenous knowledge? You come from a lineage of sangomas, because when we listen to your music, we feel a vibration that is just beyond music. For example, the song Kamata.
Yeah. I mean, it's a journey for us. How I can put it is that I don't believe that we can ever go back, and it sort of like makes the conversation or the theory around Sankofa interesting, in that we must look back and move forward, and I really believe in that. So there's no way that Africans can go back to how things were done. Like, life is evolving, and the reality is that we were colonized, and we still, in some ways, still are, and also we still carry a part of that trauma from our ancestors, and now we need to find a way out of it. But then us going out must not us trying to become these kings that we were before. We must imagine life in a different way, because the ultimate goal, it should be independence, it should be freedom. Everyone should be free, everyone should be seen. That should be our concern, not to try and become, or to try to recreate what has been in the past, right? And so now you can't fight your enemy if you don't understand them, and I think it's Audre who also speaks about using the master's tools, to dismantle the master's house, so or to fight the master. But so now, like for me, I needed the technical aspect, had I to take the academic route, but then the gift in itself is God given. But then there's the power of learning or acquiring a skill. It's that it unlocks the technical capabilities. They unlock what the spirit wants to do. So that's when now the vessel the vessel can be as useful as you equip it. So I am that vessel. So part of going to that, I'm not concerned about academia, I'm not concerned about the Western culture, because I've come to understand that Africa is the center. There's no great artist who reached their peak and never thought of coming back to Africa. You look at your Miles Davis, when he reaches his peak, there's still that need for them to be traced to their African roots. We've seen in the recent years your Marcus Millers, the great bassists, international bassists, they need to come back. Your Wynton Marsalis, they need to come back to Africa. Even the visual artist, the painter, Picasso, great painter, and he still couldn't achieve his greatness, without coming and emulating African art. So Africa is the center. And so basically, for me, I just need to acquire the skill, but everything that's needed, it is in us. This lineage of ancestors that we have, they do give us. Yeah.
True, true, true. We come from Embo, we come from the cradle. That cannot be disputed and it will never be disputed. And now, talking of ancestors, listening to your sound, you embrace igwijo and imvumane chants with ancient memory. How do these traditions, transform the energy of your performances?
I mean, with imvumane is actually a style or a type of singing that we have in the Eastern Cape. So in the Eastern Cape, there's a nation, or you can call it a clan or a tribe of Amahlubi. Because of colonization, we were now put under one umbrella to say Gamaxhosa. But then when they say we are Xhosas, what they are, you should know that there are a lot of different clans that you have there. You have Amahlubi, Amampondo, Amamfengu, Amabhaca, so there are many different nations under that umbrella. So I'm I'm raised by Amahlubi, and then there was a point. So as a person, or how do I call it? When you reach a certain age, as a young man, you have to go through initiation, and through that process, that's when you'll find Imvumane. And even as we come back, weeks later from the mountain, there are songs that we'll be singing, and these songs, they're oral archives, or you can even say the canon of our history as a nation. We tell these stories, we reflect, we remember, and we also reinvent, these songs, at that particular period of time. So that's where I think I most got attached to singing and got attached to our way type of singing, and that is Imvumane. So I carry that with me, even how I arrange horns and all of that. But then now with igwijo, it's the same thing. The kind of history that we have, it's basically protest songs, but it has a different meaning to different people, right? And music has played a big role in terms for the liberation, of our people. But then now the crisis that we have in the country is that art is no longer at the center of conversation, and is no longer used you know, as a medium that can explain things and show, mirror, you know, the societal issues, you know. So now our politicians, because they know how powerful art is, they've now sidelined it. They'd rather take the kind of art that perpetuates the capitalist agenda, you know. So protest music is about that, to say things have not changed, you know. Struggle songs about that. For as long as we are struggling, we're gonna sing struggle songs, and essentially that's why now we have this traditional and imvumane and igwijo. And now this thing does not start with us. Even our ancestors who fought wars, you know, these songs were there, and we are just continuing with that.
And still on the note of imvumane, you know, there's when you answer the call of the ancestors, there's a certain breath you have to give up. You know, there's a certain every initiate knows you have to give up something. Are you willing to mention that for us, or too much pie for now? You know, there's always something
No,
we have to give up.
I think for me, like the death that the kind of death that you experience is that your life is not your own anymore. You know, I do have a family, and I do have loved ones. You know, I do have kids, but then I understand that my calling goes beyond that. You know, for as long as I'm available, I'll be available. But then it's also important to conscientize my loved ones to say, I'm not called to them only, but then I'm called to the nation. You know, I'm called, there's a particular calling that I have, and that seeks to liberate Black people. So that's my calling. I'm a servant, you know, to Black bodies, because I hate oppression. Um, yeah, I detest colonization. You know, whenever white supremacy shows its head, you know, it must be slaughtered, you know, it must be cut off. And for me, I carry no fear in me, you know. So that is one thing that I do not fear. The only that I'm concerned about, it is for us as Black people to have or attain complete liberation and independence.
True, true. And I can see the Sangoma blood is very active in you, because you just set the premise of my next question. Your work touches on displacement, identity, and race. How do you see the responsibility of the artist in this wounded society? Because we do have a wounded society.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's in those, like, famous words of Nina Simone, you know, saying that the duty, you know, of the artist is to reflect the times, you know, and having an understanding that as an artist you have a role to play, you know. You must not fear, you know. It's like in Kenya, you know, you had the now late great writer, you know. I also don't know if I'm pronouncing
Ngugi
it
wa
properly,
Thiong'o.
but
Ngugi
Wationgo,
wa
you know.
Thiong'o. Yes.
Yeah, and in Nigeria you had your fella Kuti, you know, didn't fear. He was in and out of
Nuachebe.
prison. Yeah. And then when they were fearless, you know. And I think that's what the artists, because now what happens in these days, uh, artists have been made to be dependent to grants. So now, if you speak the truth, you are running the risk to be blacklisted and not get any funding and not getting booked, you know. So now there are artists who are like that, who are concerned about the stomach. You know, now it's stomach politics. You will turn a blind eye even when you see that something wrong within the system. So I think that artists needs to be fearless.
True. And that is something we also face. You know, if you're having these dialogues, if you're speaking the truth, you'll even find networks like YouTube shadow banning your content because they don't want the truth going out. Now, speaking of legends, the man behind the inspiration, Steve Biko, he taught that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressed is the mind of the oppressed. How does your music speak to that truth today? Because you're bringing up Biko's dream. So how does and Biko say that the greatest weapon is here. How are you using that in the music?
It's to make it's by conscientizing, and also to spiritually awaken, because I believe you must be spiritually rooted, and we know even historically when kings would go to war, they will consult with the healer or Ganye Isangoma, so that they are strengthened. And also they need to know, or even in the Bible, David, before he goes to war, he will ask a prophet like Samuel, will God give us this victory? And the prophet will say, hey, don't go, or go, God is with you, even though you're few in numbers. So I believe one thing we've lost we've left behind as Blacks, it's to be spiritually empowered, and every one of us, we have the breath of God in us. And so if we take a moment to meditate, we'll know what to do. The Spirit always is available to guide you. So that's what we do in our music, to spiritually awaken. Well, at least we attempt to, right? And then also now when it comes to the mind, what's important is that a reading culture. So we do promote a reading culture amongst Blacks, because with how life has become, people are reading less and less. And so for us, it's important to remind people of the likes of Frantz Fanon, the likes of your Toni Morrisons, people that speak to the lived experiences of Black people. And one of my favorite, is Tambutso Marechera, who beautifully captures, the life of a Black person under colonization, and how the world always reminds you that you are Black, even if you are educated, even if you are rich. Somehow the world will always remind you that you are Black. So that's basically how we try to free the mind, of Black people. And we in the EP we have a song called Singabako, and towards the end the song says that Singabomoya, Singabamanzi, Singabomhlaba, Singabomlilo. So basically there we're speaking about the four elements, that is soil, earth,
Air,
water,
wind, and water.
the spirit. Yeah. So it's basically to say, like, you do have that innate power, you just need to unleash it, and once people have an understanding, to say that there's nothing wrong with them, there's something wrong, very wrong with the enemy, there's something very wrong with the system. So we are not struggling because there's something that we are doing wrong. We are struggling and we are poor because we are Black. Art is not hard. Art becomes hard when we are Black. We can be equipped, we can be doing everything right, but then because we are Black, there are certain things that you can't escape, and because we are Black, you have to work extra hard in this world. And now you can imagine what's the dilemma now for the Black woman, how vulnerable they are, even worse for the Black child. So once we have an understanding of the system, then we are definitely moving towards the right direction. And that's what basically Biko speaks to, to say once you have that consciousness, the moment you call yourself Black, you are really on the right path towards emancipation.
And you are spiritual, so this one I have to ask. Now, when we are invoking as Africans, when we are invoking powers above, so many names were brought to us, but we still have our names. We have Kamata, we have Sonini Nanini Somandla, we have Nkulunkulu. Yeah. So how do we determine what is ours and what is theirs? Because if we read the good book, we are told, you have started worshiping deities that your fathers knew not. And when we talk of our fathers, we are talking of our ancestors. Our ancestors knew of Nkulunkulu, they knew of Sonini na Nini, they knew of Kamata. In East Africa, we know of Ngai Murungu, you know. Credo, Ubaba Credo Mtu did a very extensive thing. So according to you, Nkosiami, how do we keep the authenticity of our spirituality and yet without getting sucked into religiosity?
I mean, like it's all based on research. If one is, they're always willing, you know, if you have a teachable spirit and you take it upon yourself to go on that journey, you know, of learning, of asking, and who else can you ask other than the elders, you know? And basically for me, that's how we can try to what you call it, preserve, you know, our so-called spiritual ways, you know. But I still argue that, yeah, because the information is available, you know, it's available in oral form, it's also available in literature as well, in a form of text, right? So it's all in one's, like how curious one is, or how one has that teachable spirit and they're willing to learn. So there's nothing wrong with asking. But again, I argue that for me, the greatest guidance is the spirit. If you take a moment and allow your gut or your intuition to lead you, then you are able to do things, even though you might not understand them. But then if they feel right to you, you know, then you are on the right path. Because remember, we are not alone. These ancestors are still with us, you know. So as I'm here, I am with both my paternal and my maternal, you know. So andihamba indodwa, ndihamba noNkosi, noRhadebe, noMthimkhulu, ndihamba noLisa, noHlathi, noJambase, ndihamba noMbamba, noKrila, noThangane, nasemagxotsheni ndikhona apho, yabo. So like and they are always there to guide me. Some of the things I do not understand why I do them, you know, and I cannot explain my actions sometimes, and find that it's just them that live in me. So I believe the greatest guidance is from within. But people must do that, take up that task of asking, reading, researching. We must just have a teachable spirit, and that's how we can preserve.
Every
I
spiritual
think I
worker.
can't hear you.
Yes, sorry, I was
So I
on
didn't
mute.
catch that.
Yes, I'm starting the question. I was on mute. My apologies. So
Okay.
now, every spiritual person knows the ego can be a friend and can be an enemy, you know? And the accolades, once you're doing something, the accolades, they start coming in. You know, like recently, you were named the Male and Guardians 200 Young Youth South Africans, you know, and this places you as a cultural torchbearer. How has that shaped your journey, or has it been an advantage or a disadvantage to you?
I really don't know if it has been an advantage or not. You know, like we take up these things. I mean, the recognition is good. You know, it does help because that's how the world functions. You know, the world functions through accolades. You know, you can leave a highly skilled person for the job, a fully qualified person for a job, simply because they do not have a degree, even though they can really perfectly do the job, and you won't hire them because they do not have a degree. And yet you will hire a robot who's clueless, but they just crammed, you know, they just crammed this theory, and they actually can't be creative, break any boundaries. They lack vision, and they will get hired because they have the paper. So for me, like, accolades are limited. They can work for you, but then it's said that people who are really fit for the work, they will now get dismissed because they do not have those certain accolades. So there are different institutions as well, right? You have these institutions that are formal and the institutions that are informal. So I view being recognized, it's more on the so-called formal or commercial. I believe out there there are other young people who are doing greater work, who need these types of recognition, but then because of their circumstance and because of where they are, they won't get to get recognized. So this male and guardian top 200 for me, it's sort of like also a privileged one, you know. It's not a rigorous process that really checks every corner in the country, because imagine in a country whereby you have more than 10 million young people, I can definitely tell you I'm probably not even in the top 2000, in terms of people who are really doing the work. But then at the same time, I'm not sleeping, I think about these ideas every day. I pray every day. I ask God questions every day. I question this blackness every day. I eat, I breathe this music every day. There's no day that passes. There's no off. We're doing this thing full time, spiritually, ideologically, academically. We're doing it full time. There's no rest. So I wouldn't say that I do not belong, because the work is there and the work speaks for itself. But then the greatest acknowledgement that we should seek, it is when we see the change in our lives, the change in our communities, when the people actually tell you that we appreciate you, we appreciate your work. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ubuti. Even though I believe you can never really give a measure as to someone's contribution, because your fan base relates with you. They relate with you. They get the message through you. So you are sent for those ones, and somebody else is sent for another one. So there are no ranks there, my brother. You are either moving in Ubuntu or you are not. And now, since one day you will become, and since one day you'll become an ancestor, we have this segment on the show we always do. If your music was a prayer sent 100 years from now, give us a tune as to what it would sound like. A cappella.
I can't even sing.
You are the tree. You are the tree with the fruits. So here we throw stones.
I can't even say. I wouldn't have mentioned, like, I don't think I would be. Yeah, I don't know what type of ancestors I am gonna be. I'm probably gonna be that ancestor who will want to be left in peace, like people must have to do their own thing. Like, I won't bother you. And you know how in our culture they'll say, hey, your ancestors are not happy, you must slaughter this. Your ancestors are not, like, I know me, I want my descendants to just do your own thing, man. I had my opportunity, so I can't try to live through you. Because even what I'm doing, like, I'm doing it because I want to do it. I'm not forced. I'm not owned by any person or entity. So I'm gonna be that chilled ancestor. I would say, like, they must compose their own song. They must find a way to exist in the world.
Ubuti, that was a clever way to dodge my need for a cappella. But indeed, we are grateful that you're gracing us with your presence, and we are learning so much. Now, let us inspire the youth. One word for the youth. Any young person that is watching you, right? It might be one, might be 100. Inspire.
I would say, the way life is tough, life is really tough. So prayer is important. Meditation is important. Reading the right books, it is important, and music is very important also as well, So once you have those things in your life, I think life can be maneuvered in a better way, seeing that the world is anti-black. So we have that responsibility to ensure that firstly we are free, you know, and that we are one as Africans, and then at the same time we must never carry any fear, because the reason what can stop one from speaking the truth or acting is fear. So fear is something that we constantly need to dispel, you know, and racism is something that we need to constantly slaughter whenever it shows its face, and have no tolerance for it as Black people. So we have that responsibility, because if we do not stand up to white supremacy, then our kids are going to be worse victims to it, because already our parents experienced it. We do have our ancestors who fought, but then it is something that we actively, because if you're not conscious, you find yourself bowing down to a white person, you know, because you are not conscious and you do not even understand why you are being in servitude to whiteness, and that's because you are not conscious. And sometimes you think that you are smart, justifying, you know, being a coon or being a Uncle Tom, and that's because you are not conscious. So consciousness is very, 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 very important for our own dignity and for our descendants' dignity.
Nkosi. I know I had requested for 30 minutes of your time. I've already jumped 6 minutes into that, but you can never limit us to wisdom, you know. You are the tree with the fruits, and as such, we must throw stones. So, Nhlanhla, I see you. Africa sees you. Thank you for sharing your dream, your sound, your spirit with us today. May iphupho,
Thank you.
L'ka Biko continue to heal, resist,
Yeah.
and awaken.
Yeah.
Family, remember, music is not only rhythm, it is memory, it is medicine, and fire. Dayu.
Yeah.
Closing remarks?
I really don't have any. It's like I can just say till next time. The conversation continues, you know.
Till
Much
next
love to
time.
everyone.
So, by your own words, we will be having you once more for interesting dialogue. I have to take advantage of some of these things. I told you you're the tree with the fruits, and as such, we must roast them. So, from all of us here at Banturi Education TV, that has been none other than Nhlanhla Ngqaqu. As much as I'm butchering that name, you have to forgive me. I'm East African. The clicks
No, yeah,
just simply.
you know why? You are black. You are black. So if you are black, it's fine. If it was a white person, we're gonna be doing this the whole episode until they get it right. So because you are black, it's permissible, my brother.
Nkosi, Ubuti. Nkosi. So from us at Banturi Education TV, until next time, Bayete, Kobusi, Ateke, Dayu.
Iphupho, Bantu production.